Welcome back to the Oscar Project Podcast, the show where I discuss Oscar-nominated films year by year. I am your host, Jonathan Eaterberg, and today I'm bringing you a conversation with the winner of the 2024 Oscar Prediction Contest. Before I jump into the conversation, please subscribe to the show in your podcast player so you can get all the newest episodes as soon as they are released. If you like the interview and want to hear more, please consider leaving a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I'm joined today by Kyle, the winner of my 2024 Oscar Prediction Contest. Kyle successfully predicted 18 out of the 23 categories at the 96th Academy Awards, and he joins me today to talk about the Oscars, other movies we loved in 2023, and more. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be on. I'm excited to talk with you about movies and the Oscars.
Excellent. So let's start off with that contest. How did you pick so many correct? Were you just lucky, or do you do a lot of following the award season trends and all of that stuff leading up to the Oscars?
Yeah, I mean, I predict the Oscars year round. Like it's something I take very seriously. It's just one of my favorite hobbies. And I've been doing it since I think my first year where I've taken it very seriously of predicting was the Shape of Water year, 2017. Or the 2018 Oscars for Shape of Water year. But I've been watching it since I was a child. My mom always watched the award shows like every single year, like all the major ones. So I've always watched them, but I've been recent years I've started taking it very seriously. I watch a lot of Oscar podcasts as well. I'm a big fan of Next Best Picture, a big fan of Local Men. So that's why I was surprised I didn't know about your podcast, which is this is the first time I only started listening to it this year. Shortly around the time of the Oscar prediction contest. But I listen to a lot of Oscar podcasts, and I get a wide range of opinions from a lot of different pundits. And I watch all the movies. I completed Death Race this year. I watched all 53 nominees in every single category. So it's about it's about making like educated choices, and making predictions. So I'm glad I did well. I wish I did a little better, but it was a good year.
Yeah, 18 out of 23 is not bad. I think I was one behind you. I had 17 correct, and then we had a couple. I think one other person in the contest had 17, and then a bunch going down from there. So I think there's a couple of surprises this year that might have caught people out, but I don't have your choices pulled up in front of me right now. But you remember which ones you?
I remember what I missed. If you want me to.
No, I mean if you want to, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no problem. So I think the big category that tripped up a lot of people was visual effects. I think visual effects was the one to predict this year because the two frontrunners, Oppenheimer never made the long list for visual effects at the Oscars, and that won at Critics' Choice. And then Poor Things, which won at BAFTA, was not nominated. And that was weak, like nominations wise. A lot of people were predicting, but I never predicted Poor Things for nominations because it got completely blanked from VES. Like VES never, the Visual Effects Guild, they never nominate Poor Things anywhere. So I didn't think Poor Things was going to get nominated in the first place. Yeah. And the Visual Effects Guild went with the creator for Best Visual Effects, and I chose that over Godzilla -1, which was the popular choice, which did end up winning. And a lot of people were predicting Godzilla -1. But when you look at the visual effects winners over the past years, it's rare that you see a monster movie. It's rare that you see an international film. So I just kind of thought the safer choice would be the creator, going for like the big scope space movie, would be the safer choice in that category. But it was a tough.
Yeah, I was on the fence for that one. I think I did end up picking Godzilla, but I was going back and forth between whether it was going to be the creator or Godzilla. I think those are definitely.
I think a lot of people were, but I think most people settled on Godzilla.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I stuck with the creator. I should have chosen Godzilla. I wish I did. The other one that I really missed was sound, which that was close. Zone of Interest versus Oppenheimer. I thought that was a really interesting race this year because BAFTA went to the Zone of Interest, and then Oppenheimer won both of the sound guilds, CAS and MPSE. And I just had to go with the guilds. My rule is usually if when in doubt, you go with what the guild chooses. This year, BAFTA just did incredible. They had, I think, of the 19 overlapping categories, 18 of them went correlated with the Oscars, and the only one that didn't was visual effects, which Poor Things wasn't nominated. So, kind of a perfect year for BAFTA in every category, which is insane. But yeah, I kind of wish I went with Zone of Interest because that was my personal choice. I think of the 5, that was my favorite of sound-wise. I think my favorite sound overall of the year was probably The Killer, which was not nominated but was shortlisted. But
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I
and then
picked Oppenheimer there as well. I
mhm,
think it was a toss up between that and Zone of Interest, and I went the wrong way on that one myself as well.
yeah, then the Boy and the Heron versus Spider Verse. I
Yep.
chose Spider
That was another
Verse,
one.
and this was one of the tightest races of the night. I think this was one where it was really a 50-50 shot because stats wise, both of them had precedent for why they should have won. A stat broke this year because both of them had unbreakable stats going into the Oscars, where nothing that had Globe and BAFTA had ever lost Best Animated Feature, and nothing that has ever had PJ and Ace has ever lost Animated Feature. So it was a very tough one to predict, animated feature. But I just had to go with Spider Verse because it swept the ante. So I just had more confidence
Yeah.
going in with it. But in retrospect, now that I think about it, I feel like I should have gone with The Boy and the Heron because sequels never win for animated movies. It's tough
Right.
to do. Superhero movies is already a stretch, and recency bias as well. Miyazaki's such a master.
Yep.
In retrospect, I would have gone with The Boy and the Heron, but I that's one that I'm kicking myself over. But yeah.
Yeah.
And then makeup, which was Maestro versus Poor Things. I chose Maestro. I should have chosen Poor Things. This is one I'm also kicking myself over because with anonymous ballots, Poor Things was leading, and I was kicking myself over because I wasn't the biggest fan of Maestro. I did think the makeup was really good, and Kazuhiro is a master as well. I love Hiro. I think his makeup work and a lot of his movies are great. But I wasn't the biggest fan of Maestro, and I would have loved to have predicted Poor Things, but sadly, I missed. And then finally, my fifth one that I got wrong was Actress, which I think this was the category to
one
predict
for a
that
lot
night
of
as
people,
well.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Lily Gladstone versus Emma, and it was a tough one. I chose Emma. I chose Lily because everyone else was going with it. I should have chosen Emma, but
Yeah,
it
I
was
was when she won the SAG a couple weeks prior to the Oscars, I thought that was the tipping point for Lily, and that's what put me over the edge. But
mhm.
apparently, people were splitting their ballots when they voted for the SAGs versus vote for the Oscars, or maybe they just wanted to spread the love around a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, well, SAG is like it's such a large body now. Like
Right, exactly. Yeah,
it's like 10 times the amount of members than the Academy. Like there's over
right.
100,000 members of SAG, but obviously not all those people vote. Um, and just like there's like crazy like they have like TikTokers in SAG now. Like As and Ray's a SAG member, so like I can't. It's harder and harder to take SAG seriously every year,
Right.
but you can't ignore the correlation it has. So we take it seriously, but yeah.
And then, so that's good there. What some of the favorite moments from the Oscars? There's a lot to pick from. Obviously,
Yeah,
you
I
had
think
the Ken song. You had Mr. Cena coming out with nothing but the birthday suit on. What were some of your top moments of this year's Oscars?
I think my favorite moment was actually the speech for 20 Days in Mariupol for Best Documentary. I
Yes.
loved it. Was very empowering about the invasion of Russia and Ukraine, and I think it really touched me. And I think that was my speech of the night personally. I think it was one of the best moments of the Academy Awards. I also really liked the John Cena costume design gag was really funny. I thought it was a goofy one. I thought it was really, I thought it worked. I thought it worked really well too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was completely unexpected, and they pulled it off. And I actually
Yeah.
liked seeing some of the videos on Instagram and elsewhere online of showing the behind the scenes of how they got him dressed during the
Yeah.
presenting of the nominees and all that. It was a really cool bit.
Yeah, the Messi and the Messi clapping, the
Uh-huh.
guy underneath the chair, that was funny.
Yep.
Obviously, it's great to see Nolan winning his Oscar, and his speech about like the art form only being a little over 100 years old was really impactful to me. Devine Joy Randolph, her opening
Yeah,
speech
she
where
had a
she's just
wonderful
crying,
speech.
and Lupita Nyong'o gives such a beautiful like testament to her. I thought that was
Yeah.
really great.
And
I
not
think those
only
were probably my
Devine
top
crying,
moments.
but Paul Giamatti crying when she was giving her speech as well. I mean, it was making a
Yeah,
lot of
true.
people
Like he had
emotional.
like a single tear and stuff, and I was like, man, that was
Yeah.
very touching.
Yeah, one of the
Yeah.
moments that I think has gone a little bit under mentioned, and I was just thinking about it earlier today as I was getting ready for this, was the um, short documentary, The Last Repair Shop. The little girl that came up on stage with the directors there
Yeah.
was adorable. And my wife said at the time when we were watching it, because one of them handed the the actual statue to her, and she's holding it, and she's like, "Did she win an Oscar too?" And I'm like, "No, I think she's just holding it for them while they give their speech."
Yeah, I thought that was cute, and that was my personal choice to win in documentary short. I think that was my favorite of the 5, and that was my predicted as well. So yeah, I thought overall, I would say it was a slightly above average show for what I expect from the Oscars. I wouldn't say it was a perfect show. I don't think it reached the highs of what I think the Oscars can be, but I think it was a good show. I think it worked. I think it was better than last year. I think it's one of the better shows in the past decade.
Agreed.
So yeah.
So let's move on to some of the other movies that weren't necessarily nominated for awards from 2023 for whatever reason, whether they're just not the awards type or other movies that you enjoyed that haven't been getting buzz over the last several months of the award season.
Yeah, I mean, my number one film of the year was May December, which only got 1 nomination at the Oscars for Best Screenplay, and I think it should have been, personally, I think it should have been everywhere. I think I would have loved to see Todd Haynes get a director nomination. I would love to see an acting nomination for Julianne Moore, Charles Melton, Natalie Portman. I think the editing in May December is brilliant. I think it's such a well-done movie. I wish Netflix had pushed it a little bit more. I wish it gave it the campaign I felt it deserved, but I think they just kind of realized that My Show was their main egg that season and really stuck with it. Another film I really loved, it did well at Indie Spirit. I believe it won Best Editing there, but How to Blow Up a Pipeline, that was another one that was in my top 10 of the year. I loved it a lot. I thought it was one of my, it was a movie I saw very early on, and I thought it just had a blast of energy. I thought it was really well done. There was a couple, can I say something that was, can I talk about international feature?
Absolutely, go for it.
Godland, it was on the short list this year I believe, I want to say it was Iceland's international feature picked for this year, and it was on the short list, but it never made a short list. But I think Godland is probably my favorite of the films, other than Anatomy of a Fall wasn't nominated, but if we're excluding Anatomy of a Fall because it wasn't eligible, then Godland would probably be my favorite of the international features that were eligible and shortlisted for the Oscar. I think I prefer it over Zone of Interest. I think I prefer it over Society of the Snow. I was very entranced by it. I think it's one that everyone should watch. I implore the listeners to check out Godland if you can. It's on Criterion Channel if you have it.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll be sure to put a note for that in there. Yeah, a lot of my tops were already nominated, and we've already talked about a lot of them. I think one of the ones that wasn't nominated for anything, at least at the Oscars, was Asteroid City. That was up there among the top of mine. I know it's not, a lot of people don't think it's Anderson's best, but I thoroughly enjoyed that and expected it to at least sneak in somewhere, if
I mean,
not get a lot of nominations.
I really do adore Anderson, but Anderson got his Oscar this year as well. But
true, yeah.
I do adore Anderson. I love Asteroid City. I thought it was. I do think it's probably top half Anderson for me personally. But in this modern day, I don't know if we're ever going to see an Anderson, unless it's super mainstream, like a Grand Budapest, really break out of the Oscars. I think for a while it's always going to be below decline contenders. And with Asteroid City, it was really only competing for cinematography and production design. And Adam Stockhausen has just been missing left and right lately. But it's rough. It's rough. I mean, I wish. I'm hoping that we'll see a return for Anderson in the Oscar space soon. I would love to see an Anderson Best Picture nominee again.
Yeah, and I do like that he did actually get the award. I was a little bit biased with some of the other short film nominees because I actually got a chance to interview several of them on the podcast here, so I was kind of pulling for some of the littler engines that could in that category, but also glad to see Anderson get his Oscar finally.
Yeah, I also really loved Ava DuVernay's Origin, which never got any nominations, but I really resonated with it. I thought it was a really beautiful testament. I think it's honestly her magnum opus. I think this is the peak of her craft. I don't think it's her best work. I think When They See Us is still her best project that she's ever done. But I think in terms of how well directed it is and what a clear vision it is, I would say Origin is her magnum opus.
Yeah, and I thought
the Iron Claw was another one.
Oh no,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the Iron Claw is also another one that I really enjoyed. I think it was John Durkin's probably close to like I don't know if I prefer it over the Nest, but I think I really enjoy the Iron Claw. Sorry, continue about Origin.
No, I was just going to say about Origin. I don't know if you had a chance to read the book that it was based on. I actually read that
I have read
around the
Caste,
time,
yes.
and I thought it was an excellent book as well. If people haven't, if people enjoyed the film, they should definitely check out the book as well.
Yeah, this is something I've been doing. I think this is the third year I did it. I try to read the adapted screenplay winners. Um, not the winners, but like stuff that's competing for adapted screenplay. I try to
Yeah,
read a couple of them every year. Usually I try to read like the 5 nominees. Like this year was 4 because Barbie was adapted from a
sure.
toy.
Yeah,
But I try to read some of the adapted screenplay nominees and stuff. So I also read Priscilla, and I also read I read Caste. I read Robot Dreams. So I read a few additional. I read Cozy the Flower Moon of like the ones that were not
sure.
nominated.
Yeah,
I read the other
yeah.
4 that were nominated. Like I read Erasure. I read American Prometheus, and I think that it's always nice to see the adaptation in its original form.
Yeah, yeah, it's good to see that and have that as a reference point. And I'm always a person who, with narrative films based on books, that I like to read the book first so that I can get a picture of it before I see the director's vision for it on the screen. But
Mm-hmm.
it's good to have some of that reference because obviously even with a book like Killers or American Prometheus or Cast, any of those, you can't put every little piece that's in the book into a two hour or 3.5 hour film, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to read Erasure?
I have not yet. No, I have not gotten
Oh,
caught up in that one.
I'm gonna say I'm I'm gonna be awful. I actually think I would have voted for Oppenheimer after reading both books. I think Oppenheimer is a much better adaptation. I think American Fiction. I like the screenplay more. I think it's a really good screenplay. But I think in terms of like an actual adaptation, I
Yeah,
think Nolan really captures the essence of American Prometheus very well. More than I would say that Cord Jefferson captured the essence of Erasure.
excellent. Well, we'll put some links to all those books and the movies based on them in the notes here of the podcast. But I want to move on from 2023 to 2024. If there's anything that's caught your eye so far, we're about coming up to the end of the March here as we're recording. So anything that's caught your eye at the theater so far this year that's come out?
Um, this year, I mean, Dune Part Two was great. Of course, loved it. I thought it was. I think it's going to be a big
Yeah,
contender
I
next
agree.
year. I really enjoyed Palomista. That was really wonderful. Tilda Swinton was great in it. Julian Torres was great in it. Dee Dee, the new Sean Wang film that I caught at Sundance is really well done. Uh, I'm trying to think. There's so far this year I've actually been a little underwhelmed because I think a lot of movies I've seen like Ghostbusters, Mean Girls. It's
Sure,
January,
yeah.
February. It's a lot of
Not a
like
whole lot coming
trash.
out.
Argyle, Madam Web. They haven't been great. New Kung Fu Panda was not good, which was very disappointing because I'm a huge fan of the first trilogy. Bob Marley was kind of mid, but I did really enjoy it. I think right now Lashana Lynch, like of the movies I've seen like maybe like
Yeah,
20 movies, but of the movies I've seen, I think Lashana Lynch would be my supporting actress
yeah. She was
winner
she was
outside of
excellent.
Dune, outside of like
Yeah,
excluding Dune. Yeah.
yeah. Dune's the
But
clear winner for me right now. I actually did enjoy Argyle. I agree it wasn't a great film, but I had a lot of fun watching it. And I don't know if you.
I hated it.
No,
I'm
it's
so
fine. It's
sorry.
fine. To each his own. Did you get a chance to check out Book of Clarence at all early in the year? Because that's my other standout early this year.
No, I have not. Lakeith Stanfield, I'm a big fan of him. I love like Sorry to Bother You was my number one in 2018. So I need to
Yeah,
check it out at some
definitely check
point.
that out.
I missed it in theaters.
It's an
So
excellent film, and I personally I think I liked it better than James Samuel's previous film, The Harder They Fall, which I also really enjoyed. But I thought the Book of Clarence was excellent, and I think it's one of those the people who love it are the people who are intended to love it. The people who would hate it are the people who are intended to hate it. If that makes any sense.
yeah, I mean, I wonder. I wonder how it handles like the religious aspects of it. 'Cause I saw the trailer, I was like, "Ooh, this could be really messy, or it could be really solid and very smart." And I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I'd be curious to hear what you think about it when you get to that one.
Yeah, sure. I'll be sure to email you or message you.
Yeah. So what about the rest of this year? What else are you looking forward to through the rest of 2024 and beyond, if you want to go that far out?
That's a good question. I mean, I have a lot of anticipated movies. Should we just go down the list of everything
Yeah,
I'm
just
looking forward
list
to?
them out. List them out.
I mean, if it comes out, Nora, Sean Baker's Nora, would be my number one. I love Sean Baker's work. Florida Project is one of my favorite movies. Red Rocket recently was amazing. Tangerine, Starlet. I'm a huge Sean Baker fan, so Nora would be very high up there. Maxine, Mia Goth. I
Yep.
loved Pearl, and I really loved X. I'm probably in the minority where I think X is better than Pearl, but I'm excited for Maxine, and I'm hoping that I get to see it. I hope it comes out soon-ish. When it's coming out this year, but I'm hoping it comes out soonish. They haven't set a
Yeah, I
release
think
date yet.
well, I'm looking at the site right now. It's got it releasing July 5th, so we'll see if it holds
Okay,
to that.
okay,
So
good,
a couple
good.
months out.
Paddington in Peru. I'm a little bummed that Paul King is not returning, and neither is Sally Hawkins. That's a shame.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I'm still excited for it. Megalopolis. I mean, I cannot wait for Megalopolis. I mean, he sold his winery for it.
Right.
I'm
That's
just
the
so
new
hyped.
that's the new Coppola one, correct? If I'm
Yes, the
remembering.
new
Okay.
Francis Ford Coppola,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to premiere at Cannes this year. That's a rumor,
Yeah.
because it is completed, but I don't know if it'll, like, I don't know if they're going to do it Cannes or if they're going to wait for Venice or what they're going to do. And then also, speaking of directors who are selling like their entire lives for movies, Kevin Costner sold his $200 million ranch, and his wife divorced him so he can make like a 4-part Civil War
Yes.
Western. So I'm
I've
so
seen
hyped for Horizon.
Yes, I've seen some things about that as well. I'm very curious to see. It's one of those things. If the first one flops, what are they just going to push the rest of them straight to some streaming service, and we're never going to see them in the theater?
Well, he's already made 1 and 2, and
Yeah.
he's filming number 3 right now. So I I can't imagine that he would allow it to, like, if it flops, like that. What that tells me is that, well, damn, he just wasted all of his money.
Right.
Because he's self-producing a lot of it. It's
Yeah.
not just Warner Bros. Like, he's subsidizing like half of this. So, it's just crazy. But that's one that I'm really excited for. Both of Luca Guadagnino's new films, Challengers and Queer, I'm very excited for. I think Queer will probably be, it could be a shadow screenplay contender maybe. But I'm excited for those. I'm not a huge Marvel guy, but Deadpool and Wolverine, I mean, I'm excited enough
Yeah.
for it.
It seems to be the one that, if it has any chance of revitalizing that entire franchise, that's going to be the one.
Yeah. Clint Eastwood, probably, maybe his last movie. Who can tell with this guy? He's like 95, but Juror number
Yep.
2 looks interesting.
Yes. It
I don't like the first Joker, but I will say I am curious. I am curious about Joker 2. I'm very curious. I'm very, very curious. I have to see how it turns out, but as far as it goes, like, hearing what I've heard so far, I'm just like, I just need to see what it is. I'm curious about it. So
Yeah.
those are probably the top ones that I'm excited for. Sing Sing I haven't seen as well, and I'm also kind of excited for that. And Nickel Boys as well. That should be interesting. I'm a fan of the Colson Whitehead book, so we'll see how that is done.
Great. Yeah, I have a couple ones that I'm looking forward to. A lot that you've mentioned. Also looking forward to Gladiator 2. The original was one of my favorites, going through high school and college years. So I'm interested to see what they do to expand on that series, or on that story rather.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Deadpool.
Do you think Paul Mescal can carry Russell Crowe? Like Russell Crowe's, like,
Yeah.
do you think?
I don't know if he can. I mean, that was such an iconic performance of Russell Crowe's, and it was, I think, really almost the high point of his career between that and Beautiful Mind around the same time frame. I mean, he was top A-list at that time. So I don't know. We'll see. It's one of those things. Nothing can ever live up to the original. So I hope they kind of take it in a little bit of an unexpected direction, so that it's not such an easy direct comparison from the first one to the second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine.
Agree with you on Deadpool and Wolverine. Definitely looking forward to that one. I was just scrolling down. Oh, the other one that I have to shout out, Inside Out 2. It looking like a strong follow-up
I did
there.
not like the trailer.
I
did not like the trailer.
I really hope that the only thing that I'm holding back and not fully into it is the change in some of the voices. I get that you have to do that sometimes, but
no Bill Hader for fair.
yeah, no Bill Hader and no Mindy Kaling either.
Mindy Kaling.
For Disgust. So we'll see what the original is one of my top 4 movies on Letterboxd and has been for a long time. So I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll be able to pull that one off.
The first summer. Inside Out is a very smart movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's hard to describe. I've never seen a film that tackles, children should be allowed to feel sadness.
Yeah.
So well. I think I was very impressed with the first Inside Out. So I am curious. I'm definitely going to watch it.
Oh yeah.
But I just don't know how I feel. Like I haven't been feeling. I haven't felt the 2 trailers that have come out so far. Like they haven't been for me. The 2 trailers I've seen.
Yeah, and the other thing, they're not new movies by any stretch, but I am looking forward to taking my son, who's a teenager, a little bit younger than I was when I first saw it, but hopefully going to see a Matrix 25th anniversary release in the theater. So I'm really looking forward to that. Haven't seen that on the big screen in a long time, and one of my favorite movies of that year.
Yeah, I love the Wachowskis, so it should be good.
So I have a couple of questions that I ask all of my guests that come on the show. Usually I'm having authors and filmmakers on, but I'll ask them to you as well. So the first one is, what are your top 3 movies of all time?
That would probably be, that's a great question. Princess Mononoke would be number 1, directed by Miyazaki.
Yep.
Love Mononoke. I think it's masterclass of all time. It's the best movie ever made. Cinema Paradiso. Have you seen it?
Yes,
Cinema
I have.
Paradiso?
Yep, watched that in some college
the director's
classes.
cut specifically.
Yeah.
The director's cut was amazing. I think the relationship between Alfredo and I'm blanking on a name. Alfredo and what's the name of it's been so long, but and Toto. Sorry,
Yes.
and Toto. It's just such an amazing relationship, and I think how it portrays the love of cinema is something that has always resonated with me. And yes, so those 2 for sure. And then probably I'd throw in Sean Baker's The Florida Project. I think for me, a recent favorite, something that I've loved since I saw it in theaters back in 2017. I'm a huge fan of it. And like I said, I'm excited for Anora this year, so I'm hoping we can get another Sean Baker classic.
Excellent. Good choices all around. Now, if you could invite any 3 movie characters to your next dinner party, who would they be and why?
That's a great question. Let me say the protagonist from Tenet, John David Washington's character,
Yep.
the protagonist. I think he'd be an interesting dinner guest.
Sure.
Could have some fascinating conversation with him. Let's say, how about Barry from Punch Drunk Love? Adam Sandler's character in PDL. I think that would make for an interesting dinner with those 2 there. And I just got done watching Ghostbusters in the theater, and I hated it. But I think I think maybe I will say, I don't know. Maybe I'll say Peter, Bill Murray's character. Peter from Ghostbusters.
Peter Venkman. Okay, that's a interesting combination of characters and time periods. I really like that. And then last question that I ask everybody is, what books have you read lately? Could be fiction, nonfiction, don't have to be related to movies necessarily. I know you already mentioned a bunch of books earlier, but anything that you've been reading most recently that you can recommend folks check out.
Yeah, so currently right now I'm reading Gabrielle Zevin's book, Tomorrow, which I'm really enjoying right now. I believe there's going to be a film adaptation of it in 2025, I want to say. I know that she's writing a screenplay for it, but I'm reading that right now, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm reading the Pulitzer Prize winner Confederacy of Dunces for the first time, which is a cult classic. It's one that's very, very popular. I've never read it before, and I'm enjoying it right now. So those are two fiction. I'm going to say I'm also reading Fear and Trembling by Kierkegaard, which is a philosophy book, which I'm really enjoying right now. I'm a big fan of. I've only read one of his actual book of his other books, either or. But I'm really enjoying Fear and Trembling right now. I'm like maybe 120 pages in, so I'm enjoying it a lot right now. And then finally, let me end it off with a nonfiction I'm reading right now. I'm trying to think. I'm reading a few nonfiction books, but I'm not deep enough into any of them to recommend. I'll recommend Novelist as a Vocation by Murakami. This is his collection of essays about writing books, which I found really fascinating, and like his journey of being a writer and his thoughts on modern literature. I've also read his other nonfiction book that I would also recommend, What I Talk About When I'm Running. I think that's what it's called. It's about how how he got into long distance running and how it helped benefit him as an artist. I think those two books are great.
Interesting.
Okay, sorry, one more book. Also, I'm going to recommend The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. I think that's a really fascinating book about art and creativity that I would recommend to anyone. Okay, sorry, that was a lot of books. I'm so sorry. But...
No worries. It's always good to give people a lot of different suggestions.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, this has been a lot of fun. Before we wrap things up, is there anything that you'd like to plug? Website, social media account, anything that you have going on that you'd like to plug to the listeners?
Yes. I have a film podcast called Picture Box Cinema Hour, which I do with my friend Gavin. He's a great friend, and he's also someone who predicts the Oscars. I believe he got 16 out of 23 at the Oscars. And you can listen to our final Oscar predictions episode, although we haven't done an Oscar recap episode. We should have done one. But we do bi-weekly film podcasts, so every other week it's just contemporary film. We just talk about a movie that we've both seen or that we want to talk about. So that's always a fun thing to do. I'd like to plug everyone should go watch Love Lies Bleeding in the theater. It's a good movie. I enjoyed it a lot. Everyone should watch Dune Part 2 in the theater. It's a great movie. And yeah, I think that's all I need to plug right now.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me to talk about movies today, and congratulations once again on winning this year's contest.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully I can maybe win next year and talk to you again.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you again to my guest today, Kyle, who won the 2024 Oscar Prediction Contest on The Oscar Project. The Oscar Project podcast is written and produced by me, Jonathan Eaterberg, with editing assistance from Joshua Eaterberg. Please come back for my next episode, where I will be speaking with Andrew Stanley Kist, the author of The Early Life of Walt Disney. Until then, I hope to see you at the movies.